special edition of the Dorton and Duckett Debate Podcast. I am Lucas Dorton. That is not Nick Duckett. That is Ryan Foster, ladies and gentlemen. He is our resident hockey fan, our hockey mind that we get a lot of info from and stuff. So I wanted to bring him on a couple weeks ago. Our schedules we got kind of crazy. Things weren't really, but we're getting it done now. So Ryan, how's it going, man?
Good. You know, finally got a day off of work. Things are calming down, so I'm actually able to come on.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to have you on. I mean, as far as hockey knowledge goes, I don't know anyone that has more than you, so I had to get you on.
Yeah, I'm a student of the game. All I do is look at stats, watch games. Even when I'm at work, I'm not supposed to, but I absolutely do.
Start watching this then.
They won't be. The only one is Bonino, of course.
So why don't you give the people watching this some of your hockey background? I guess maybe where you started, what positions you play in, and maybe your favorite NHL team too.
I mean, the favorite NHL team's pretty easy given the hoodie and the hat. That one makes it real easy. So the Avalanche, of course. But I grew up in Fresno, California, not a hockey market. Grew up playing there from ages 4 to 16. Then I started playing up in Sacramento. I was playing AA. And then I went juniors, Western States Hockey League. I played for the Sabres. Got traded to the first place team, the Long Beach Bombers. Played there for 3/4 of the season. Then the following year, I didn't know if I was going to play hockey. Ended up moving out to Steamboat Springs, playing for the Steamboat Wranglers in the Rocky Mountain Junior Hockey League before it folded. Not a great league, but I had a lot of fun. And we won the championship there. And then year went by, still living in California, ended up moving out here and more than happy to be in the Denver area.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I guess being from California, how did you become an Avs fan?
So funny story. My dad was actually out here. He was a trucker. He lived in Kremling, or actually he lived in Brighton, so just northeast of Thornton. And then he was actually at McNichols Sports Arena during the Cup playoffs. He didn't go to the finals, but he was there during the playoffs.
Oh, that is super cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool. So what positions do you play?
So I played defense pretty much all throughout youth hockey and juniors. I split time up at forward too. It depended. I was more of a momentum guy. I'm not a goal scorer. I didn't get a lot of points. I was there to go hit people and fight if it needed to happen.
The enforcer on the team.
Basically.
That's awesome, man. All righty. Well, I suppose we should probably get into some hockey talk now that we have you on here. You ready to do the thing?
Let's go for it.
All right, cool. So essentially, we wanted to do a kind of a first half of the NHL season podcast. Now, the first half has kind of been gone for a few weeks now.
A little bit now.
But, we are approaching on the trade deadline, so I figured we probably should get something out before that at the very least.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But so we're going to talk about, I guess the first thing that I have to talk about is the youth success. There is so many players right now in the NHL that are so young, and this is what you want to see in all sports too. You have the old guys that have been doing it for forever, and then you kind of wonder, well, who's going to be the next young people to step up? I mean, Cale Makar, Quinn Hughes, Jack Eichel, Nathan McKinnon. I mean, and that's only, McDavid. That's only 5 there, and they're not even 25 yet. I mean, I could probably name at least 50 other people I could put on that list too. So did you see, I guess maybe before this season started, or could you predicted that we're going to have this much youth success in the game?
I did. I mean, I'm 22 now. I remember when it was technically my draft eligible year. We all go by birth years in hockey. So it was funny enough, I was grouped in with Connor McDavid, and watching him come through the draft, him and Jack Eichel just starting in preseason, right then and there is when I knew there was going to be a huge shift. Right then and there, because McKinnon was going through his slump at that point, and he was just starting to get going. But just year after year watching draft class videos, it's just insane how good these kids are. They're just machines.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I guess, now getting paired in the same class as McDavid and Eichel, I know that was like a big thing. Is like, well, should they take Eichel? Should they take McDavid? And that was a big thing going back and forth. At the time, I remember I thought Eichel was going to be the better player, and I thought McDavid was going to kind of be the one. Now, not to say that Eichel's had bad seasons. He hasn't quite lived up to those huge expectations. He's been serviceable, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
He just has not been to those expectations. I guess when both of those two players especially were coming out, which one did you think was going to be better?
Honestly, it was a good debate because I was living with 3 Canadians at the point, me and my buddy, both from the California area, and then 3 Canadians. So we were just going back and forth, just banter. But in all honesty, since day one, I was thinking Connor McDavid, just what he did and the fact that he missed, I believe it was the last half of his OHL year before he got drafted because he broke his hand in a fight. I was like, oh, he's going to come back strong. He's not dealing with this. He's going to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah. That's a good point there. And then I guess on the other side with Nathan MacKinnon and Seth Jones as well, too, I remember especially because that was the year the Avs were absolutely terrible. They were probably, before it was announced that they were going to have the number 1 overall pick, it was, we were probably going to have the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
I remember for the longest time, Seth Jones was the guy he was going to be the guy that the Avs were going to get. And then all of a sudden, Nathan MacKinnon kind of came out of nowhere, and then we got him instead too. And now as far as that draft class, which one did you think was going to be better of those two?
It's a hard comparison between defense and offense, of course, but personally, as a fan first, I was thinking offense personally. We obviously made the good decision. Seth Jones is still a solid defenseman, but being a fan at that time, it was just a little bit confusing to me seeing why they picked MacKinnon over him, and they shut my mouth really quick.
Yeah, that's the thing with sports, man, is you can think you're picking the right thing, going down the right option, and they just like completely blindside you. And whoa, I guess I was actually really wrong on that.
Yeah.
And then there's so many, especially on the goaltender side of things too. So many young goalies as well too, and I didn't even really name any of them. This Elvis kid from Columbus came absolutely out of nowhere. I don't know about you. I had literally I've heard of some of these guys every once in a while before they get drafted. I kid you not, I literally had not heard anything from this guy. So what is the reason why he's having so much success at such a small sample size too?
I give a lot of props to the coach, John Tortorella. He doesn't have the deepest roster at all. He just knows how to get those players to perform, and their decor, because they have Seth Jones, Zach Werenski just playing stud defense around him. And then the goalie position, just for the most part, is mindset. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't have the mindset, there's no way. He's a confident guy, and he's ready to go. It's great to see. I love it.
Right. And I wanted to get your opinion on this too. A lot of times goaltenders are only as good as the defense that's in front of them. Now, obviously, you have to have a strong mindset as well too. But what would you think about that take?
I'd agree to an extent. There's some goalies that can still put up great numbers with no defense. Carey Price, you've seen him start to struggle now. But even then, in years past, with only Shea Weber or PK Subban, because that's pretty much all their decor has been for the last 5-6 years. Yeah. He's still put up good numbers up until this year. He's just starting to hit that decline. So,
right. Well, we can move on from that. So going on, coach firings, as Nick would say, it's a national hot seat league. I personally, in any sport, I have never seen so many coach firings happen in really not a large time frame. They were all fairly much back to back. Not too much time in between. So what do you think the reasoning behind this is? Nick brought up the idea that maybe, St. Louis last season, at the time was the worst team in the NHL, had fired their coach, and then obviously won the Stanley Cup. Do you think that's what these other teams think, that, if we fire our coach now, maybe we'll have time to build up and get to the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, personally, I don't know if it's completely that. Some of the teams do have that mindset. I know with Toronto, Babcock, he just Wasn't a great guy. He's treating the veterans horribly. I remember I watch a lot of Spit and Chicklets. I listen to it every day. So just stories from players on there. He sat Chris Chelios at the Winter Classic game just to prove a point. Uh,
Really?
yeah, he was playing for Detroit. They were playing in Chicago. I can't remember the stadium that they were playing at, but he played him for one shift, sat him the rest of the game just to prove a point. So he's a guy who lives through his own ego. He thinks he makes all the decisions from what I've gathered from just listening to former players talk, current players. It just sounds he's fed up with his ego. Dallas Stars, Jim Montgomery, he coached at DU a little bit. That's different story. That's more alcoholism is what came out in the press release. So he's taken a step back and just getting help. Now, with that being said, I'm trying to remember who else there was.
I think the Sharks head coach, I think he was
Yeah, that's right.
Calgary? I can't remember.
Calgary, that was the racial stuff with Akeem. I don't want to mess up his name, so I'm not even going to try it. I'm not going to be that way. But so that was in the previous era. Now, with that being said, too, the eras in hockey are also completely different.
Right.
15 years ago, the coaching style and how you were allowed to treat players, completely different. That does not excuse his actions at all, but it's when you grow up playing in a different era, people function differently. But the most surprising one to me, now that you brought it back up to my mind, was the Vegas Golden Knights hiring the Sharks head coach, Peter DeBoer. And it's hilarious, the fan uproar, how mad the Vegas fans are, because this guy is a good coach. He has a good track record, but because he played for your rival team, he's not allowed to be your coach.
Yeah, I think that is funny to think about, that the fans, and I didn't even know how the fans felt about it until you just now brought it up.
Yeah.
I think we're in a stage now in professional sports to where rivals don't really matter, to a certain extent as far as history goes. Okay, yeah, sure. Obviously the Avalanche and Red Wings are always going to be a huge rivalry, even though they barely play each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things now where, like, if one player goes from one team to their rival, it happens all the time now. It's one of those things that just happens.
Yeah, it's weird to think about. I think divisionally we still have rivals in hockey. You don't want to trade divisionally because the playoff race is so tight, especially in the West. Where the Avalanche are, I want to say 2 points behind the Blues. I can't remember who's right behind them, but it's like a 4-team stretch in a span of 4 points just for first place. So it's a little bit different divisionally, but I mean, even conference-wise, sending a player from the Central to the Pacific isn't unheard of anymore, or Campbell's to Wales as it used to be, but still.
Right. And I guess I want to go back to the Babcock thing, because that was a huge deal. And I heard the story, and I didn't know any of this. When he was with Detroit and then obviously going to Toronto, I did not know that he was that self-absorbed and that much of an egotistical guy until we found out. Did you hear the whole Mitch Marner story when he was a rookie there?
Yeah, he had him list out all the players on a sheet from hardest working to least hardest working. It's one of those things that would have flown, I'd say, about 10 years ago, but just the generation of players is completely changed, because I can remember coaches asking me that growing up. It was just one of those things to get more out of you, get more out of every single player. They want different opinions to see who they need to push more. Now, with that being said, going to Mitch Marner, of all people, I don't know if that was the best decision.
Obviously, being a rookie at the time, too, just trying to make your way in the league and on your team, I feel that that's asking a lot. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he had Kadri was the last one on the list there that he put.
I believe so, yeah. Which is funny because now the Avs have Kadri, and he's a solid second-line center again. He's out right now. He just got released lower body injury from the Wild game 3 nights ago now. But, I mean, even then, he's been picking up his pace of play, which is nice to see.
And Toronto is really loving Tyson Barrie over there, from what I've heard.
Almost as much as I loved him here. I could not stand him personally.
Yeah, I went to an Avs game. This was actually Tyson Berry's first game back to the Pepsi Center
Mhm.
when they were playing the Avs, and when they were doing this pre-game, yeah, like tribute thing to him,
Yeah.
like I mean, yeah, he played with us for a long time, but like he wasn't very good. I mean, he scored. He could
Mhm.
score, which is great. And you can talk more as a defenseman. Obviously, yeah, if you can score, that's great. But if you can't play defense, I mean,
Yeah.
why you on the team?
So moving out here, I was able to see games firsthand, and it just proved what I thought. He's not much of a defenseman. Personally, I think that. I didn't like the way that he played back. He was more forward skate, back check, always didn't like to skate backwards too much so he could pick up the puck, turn, and go. Which I get, as an offensive defenseman, which he is, it makes sense. But with the way that our team was structured, it didn't work too well. Now, also, I have never seen a single player miss the net so many times on power play wide open one timers from the point. He would hit the black netting of the glass before he would hit the back of the net, or he'd pass it 500 times, whichever one he chose to do that game.
I mean, I don't want to turn this into a Comedy Central roast of Tyson Berry, but I figured, since we were talking about it, might as well bring something up with it. I don't know. I just think it. Oh well, we'll move on from Tyson Berry. We can roast him another day.
I can respect what he did for the franchise, but I still don't have to like him as a player.
Right, exactly, and that's how I feel too. Great person off the ice, great community guy, but yeah. Um, so this is another thing too that I was just reading in on. There are goaltenders right now in the top 10 for save percentage that are not making a lot of money. Tristan Jarry from Pittsburgh, 675K. Darcy Kemper, Arizona, he's making 1.84. Elvis, who I'm not going to pronounce his last name because I don't want to mess that up, is making 874,000 for Columbus. Ilya Samsonov from the Capitals, 925. Franco from the Avs, 950. And that was just the ones there. And then the struggles too, like you mentioned, Carey Price making $10.5 million. He's currently at 30th in the NHL in save percentage. Sergei Bobrovsky from Florida, 10.5 million is 47th. And then Holtby from the Capitals, 49th and making $6.1 million.
Yeah.
So I guess what is your initial reaction when you hear those things? Because those are some big name guys that are not producing this year.
Oh yeah. Well, to the contract situation with the younger guys, a lot of them are on prove it deals, I'd say. Frank Cows, of course, Abs fan. I'm going to talk about him first because I read up on him when he first came in. He played in the KHL for a couple of years, trying to get his game underneath him. Came over, played for the Eagles in the AHL, and then last off season when we got rid of Varlamov and brought him up, he's just on a prove it deal. He's here to make sure that he sticks and he stays. Elvis Merzlikins, if I'm not mistaken, that's how you say it. I'll take heat if it's wrong. I'll take heat. It's fine. But so he's just a young guy. He's ready to get playing after Bobrovsky went to Florida to get his payday. Korpisalo got brought up, and the only reason why Elvis got the shot that he did is because, I hate to say it, a bad call led a game to a shootout where Korpisalo gets hurt and Elvis comes in, and that's when his tear begins.
Yeah.
Now with the underperforming high-paid goalies, Carey Price, when he signed that contract, was absolutely worth every single penny.
Absolutely.
So nowadays, it's just he's on that decline. He's getting up in age. He's been dealing with injuries the past few years. It happens. It happens to everybody. Bobrovsky, this was a deal I hated from the beginning. For the Florida Panthers, they're a team that I like to watch. I honestly do. They play a lot of fun hockey. They don't get a whole lot of attention. Huberdeau, Keith Yandel, hilarious guy. Barkov, who else? Who am I missing? There's plenty of guys, though, either way. They are a fun hockey team to watch, and they just threw away so much cap on a goalie who absolutely had a great season, but he only had one or two. I don't think he fully proved himself to that point.
Sure, that's fair. I guess if you want to speak on Holtby too, that's a big. I mean, 49th in save percentage. He has dropped big time, and I guess that's why Samsonov has been getting a lot of the playing time because he's just been playing better.
Yeah, so Holtby, I don't know what his slump's about, but I also like it for Samsonov. Samsonov's their younger guy. I don't want them to get into another situation because it's been twice that the Washington Capitals have had to trade a starting caliber goalie to the Avalanche. I mean,
Yeah.
as an Avs fan, it's great because we had Varlamov when he first came in, who was great. Declined over time is what it is. He's playing really well for the Islanders now, so I'm happy for him. And then now we have Grubauer. We got two great goalies from the Capitals. I don't want to see that happen to Samsonov, have him move somewhere else when he's starting to put his game together. He's just a young guy, and he's getting in the reps now, and that's why he's playing well.
Right. And with sports too, hockey especially, as much as you want to see these big name guys out there, because a lot of people, they carry Price, Braden Holtby, Bobrovsky. Maybe not so much Bobrovsky. I guess I'll just mainly Price and Holtby. Yeah. Are household names. They're franchise names. Fans love to see these guys play. And they're struggling right now, and I'm sure you want to see them play. But from just a hockey standpoint, you got to play with whoever's, especially with goalies too. Mm-hmm. You got to play with whoever's hot. And if Holtby and Price aren't hot, sucks to say, but don't play them.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. It's a dog-eat-dog world a lot of the time. Now, with that being said, in the locker room, the goalies are always usually great to each other. They're just trying to get each other motivated. But when it comes down to on the manager side, coaching side, it's a dog-eat-dog world. They want the people who are performing the best day in, day out.
Absolutely. So you can move on from that now. Talk about some Alex Ovechkin and the chase for 700 goals. First off, is he one of out of obviously I'm not going to say like Gretzky and Messier and those players just because obviously neither of us were alive when they were playing, but as far as just players that you have seen play, is he the best pure goal scorer that you've ever seen?
Oh, absolutely, pure goal scorer without a doubt. And even with that, watching him the last few years grow his defensive game has just made him that all-around player. I absolutely love watching him play. It's great to see for the game.
Absolutely. Do you think Ovechkin now? Obviously, he's got some numbers to chase if he wants to beat Gretzky for the all-time goals. Do you think he will pass him eventually?
I honestly do. So Gretzky's at 894, if I'm not mistaken, 894, 896. If Ovechkin is usually at about a 50-goal pace a season. He's going to pass 700 this year. There's no doubt in my mind with how much season is left. And he's only got, 4 or 5 goals left till 700. And he's going to pass that. I think he's not going to stop until he passes that record, in all honesty. And unless he has a massive decline in scoring, he's getting it in 4 or 5 years max.
Absolutely. Hey, you're 100% right. 50, 60 goals a season is kind of what you almost expect from Ovechkin. This is another thing too, is I have never seen a player in the NHL. I mean, there have been electric players, don't get me wrong, a ton of them. But I don't think I've seen a player that can literally put an entire team on his back and say, hey, I'll go out and put out 4 or 5 goals. Just don't give up, 3, 4 of them. Like, it almost is like at will he can score. Whenever he wants, he can score. That's what it seems like.
It's crazy. I mean, he scores on the power play, same spot every single time. He is at the top of the left circle, ready for a one-timer. He doesn't move. He just waits for that puck to come. And teams strategize around it. They do. They try to block that. But John Carlson at the point, who I know we're going to get to later, he can make that pass every single time, and Ovi can find that corner. It's just crazy.
It's you're a really good player when the other team knows what you're going to do and they still can't stop it.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
700 goals. I mean, that's a huge mark. I think, and it's unfortunate too that the sports world really isn't following this more than they should be. 700 goals is a gargantuan task to get up to 700. Yeah, you're still 190 some away from Gretzky, but at the end of the day, you look at some of the names that he's had to pass just to get to where he is now, I don't know why there is not more coverage to get him to 700.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a big part of hockey in the mainstream sports world. It's not the biggest sport in America, it's just how it goes. But I guarantee it in 2-3 years when he's up at the 800 mark, they're going to start watching closely. I think it's just not enough for media coverage to buy fully in yet,
Sure. And that's fair too when you bring that up. I think once he gets around 800, I think you have to absolutely start having a tracker, having a countdown. Because as far as ESPN goes, I know they have Barry Melrose, who does is okay, but he's the only NHL guy there. So I guess you gotta you gotta like what you have. But I don't know. Oh well. Well, we'll have to see though. Ovechkin to 700, if he can get there, that's ginormous. That's huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to go into some disappointments this season now. We're going to start with the New Jersey Devils. If you have a team, if at the beginning of the season, Ryan, I told you had a team with PK Subban, Jack Hughes, Nikita Gusev, and at one point you had Taylor Hall, how do you think that team would finish?
In all honesty, if PK Subban finally played true to how I think he's always been, I'd say middle of the pack.
And, right now, they had a coach fired. Taylor Hall is no longer there. He is now in Arizona. Why are the Devils, with this talent that they have and had with Taylor Hall, why are they underperforming so much?
I mean, a lot of the young guys, they're still trying to find their footing. Nico Hischier, he's just not there yet. He's signed that 7.5, I want to say it was 7.5 extension 2 years ago. He's still finding his game. Jack Hughes, we're seeing what first overall picks used to drastic improvement. I think with those two specifically, give them another 2 years, they're going to be a contender again. PK Subban, he's an electric personality. I love what he does for the game. I've never thought of him as an all-star hockey player. Just the way he skates, the way he turns over the puck so many times, it's just finally catching up to him. He doesn't have all the pieces that he normally has. He had in Montreal, he had in Nashville to get the points that he got. Nikita Gusev, I thought he was going to be amazing coming over from Russia. He sounded like one heck of a player. And it's a shock to see him underperforming, but also the international game versus the National Hockey League game, North American game, is a huge, drastic change. Just ice rink size, some of the specific rules. You don't have as much time and space, so I think that's affecting him right now. And hopefully he'll be able to find his game.
And I'm sure he will. And like you said, with those young players like Hischier and Hughes, they are young, so I'm not going to knock them too much. Trying to find their way in the league, like you said, give them a couple years, and if they're still struggling, then maybe it's time to think some things over. And Taylor Hall too. I know for a while. Did you want the Colorado Avalanche to get Taylor Hall? Because I know he was a huge name that the Avs were looking at.
Personally, no. I don't think that we need another pure goal scorer is basically what he is. He can get point A to B. He's not great defensively. He's there to go score goals. I think with our first line being what it is with McKinnon, Rantanen, and occasionally Landeskog, occasionally I want to say Burakovsky, he comes up, they switch. I think that's a good mixture for the top line. Second line having Kadri, Burakovsky, or Landeskog, whichever they decide to go with that night. And then even sometimes Valerie Nichushkin, who has been a surprise this season. I feel like we just had a solid enough group. Now, with that being said, Chris Kreider, I would love him coming out. Just the game that he plays, I would love him coming to Colorado.
Now, give it a few weeks. The trade deadline, I believe, is the 24th, if I'm not mistaken, of February here coming up.
I believe so. I'm not 100% certain on that either. It feels like it changes every year. So,
if the Avs can go on and get him, I would be very much okay with that. I mean, you can never have too much scoring. I mean, obviously, you want to have some good defense thrown in there too. Mm-hmm. But the more depth that you can have at scoring, and this is another person on the Avs side of things too, Jonas Donskoi.
Oh yeah,
Thank you very much, San Jose. I'll take that every single day.
Yeah. It's fun for me because my mom's a diehard Sharks fan. He gets his first hat trick of his career in Colorado. I gave her a very hard time for that one. He's one of those pieces that, with the veteran core that San Jose had, just got overshadowed. He didn't have the minutes. He didn't have the time that he needed to shine. He was playing third line minutes there in Colorado. He's usually playing second, occasionally third. So it's good to see.
Yeah, I was really excited. I knew when we got him, I didn't expect him to be terrible. I didn't expect him to be a great player. Just kind of middle of the pack. He's been surprising a lot of people this year, and I think San Jose is kind of regretting that decision, letting him go.
San Jose is regretting a lot right now.
Well, that'll be the next team that we talk about, the San Jose Sharks. A nice segue there. We know with Thornton there, obviously, Marleau coming back. Brent Burns there, obviously a solid player as well, too. One of the worst teams this season. And you talk about a San Jose team that yearly is either competing for a top seed in the Western Conference, if not a top wild card spot. And then once they're in the playoffs, they are competing for a Stanley Cup every single year with normally how good that roster is. What has been the biggest turnaround is why they've struggled so much?
So it's age catching up to guys, too. They lost Pavelski. Pavelski went to Dallas. He wanted a new shot. I don't blame him at all. It's hard, even for me, disliking the Sharks as much as I do, seeing him outside of a Sharks uniform. That's just who I've always grown up watching him play. Thornton, he's just getting up there in age. He's still trying to play those top-line roles. He's not there anymore. He's more like a third, fourth-line center. Patrick Marleau, he just doesn't have the same speed that he used to. Now, with all that, also injuries. They just lost Timo Meier. I can't remember how long, but he went down. I want to say it was ACL. It was lower body for sure, but losing him. Martin Jones, their goalie, I've never seen anything special with him, even when his time with LA. Funny story, one of my youth hockey coaches actually worked in the Kings organization, and same thing. He never saw anything super special with him. He just hasn't had the drive, from what I've been told. Now, and then Brent Burns, monster. He's a monster human being. It's crazy how big he is and what he became coming from Minnesota. That's just a crazy story in and of itself. But I don't know. He's trying to do too much offensively. He's trying to compensate for the lack of offense they're having. Same with Erik Karlsson. They're just trying to push up the ice too much, and they're not willing to kind of take a backseat, get the breakout pass, and go. They want to just kind of go coast to coast and make something happen.
Right. The San Jose Sharks, Avalanche were one Gabriel Landeskog onside away from potentially beating them.
Yeah, that's it's rough. It's the right call looking back on it. It doesn't say that that's what I felt like at the time. I definitely wasn't happy about that, but I also believe that they easily could have came back in that game even without that call. They were one goal away from tying it up and sending it to overtime with a full period left. It's a catch-22. I didn't like the call, but I feel like they could have come back.
I'm with you there. I went to school out in Minnesota for 4 years, and I heard a lot. A lot of Wild fans loved it. They love to talk. And I just had to remind them that while we were a game away from going to the Western Conference Finals, you guys were missing out in the playoffs again. So
yeah.
so state of hockey, if you want to call it that, I guess. But fans, my friends will listen to this that are Wild fans are probably going to be messaging me like, I don't care, bring it on. I'm used to it.
Probably that's okay. I personally don't like the Wild. That stems back to Matt Cook being on your team when he took out Tyson Berry's knee in the playoffs, ended our playoff run right there. And I don't have much love for the Minnesota Wild team, but I'm sure the fans are fine.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Sure. We'll go with that.
I'm already bringing enough heat on myself this episode. I gotta divert it a little bit.
Devin Dubnyk too. I'm sorry, Ryan. Let me just get your opinion on this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this podcast is turning more into our personal vendettas against certain teams as far as the first half episode, but we might as well talk about it. Dubnyk, and it's maybe because just I don't know, they're big rivals of the Avs.
Mm-hmm.
I have not ever seen a goalie that puts out as much cheap shots as Devin Dubnyk, but then won't back it up.
Yeah, I was about to say cheap shot wise, Patrick Waugh would definitely be up there, but he'd back it up. There's a little bit of a difference. I remember, I want to say it was a year or two ago, Devin Dubnyk and Landeskog went into it, and he threw a couple of punches, but right when his mask came off, he went down and backed off. It was interesting. But I mean, goalies, I believe that they have the right, if somebody's in their blue crease, take a hack at them. They deserve it. I got plenty of them, and I just ran with it and accepted it. That was my job. I understood it. Yeah. But if you're coming out of the net to try and do something, you better back it up.
But anyways, we can move on from that. I got the blood pumping for no reason there. That's all right. So we'll move on now to the New York Rangers. This is a team, obviously, this offseason got Artemi Panarin and then had draft Capo Caco. I hope I said the name right. I don't know. Maybe I didn't.
Capo. It was close.
pretty close. And then obviously with Lundqvist there too. The Rangers, is that kind of one of those things where maybe the age factor might be catching up with them, or why have they been struggling so much?
I'd say it's age and just the huge age gap as well. They have some older veteran guys and not too many in the middle between veteran and rookie. Capo Caco, same as Jack Hughes, he's got to get his feet underneath him. He's another one of it's a classic case of an older draft. You go back about 10 years, 15, well, it's 2020, about 15 years. Rookies, first overall picks, excluding like Ovechkin and Crosby, they played in the AHL for a season or two to get their game. Nowadays, everybody expects them to just be thrown into the because and Leon Draisaitl, who's amazing. I know he's not a number one overall, but still a great pick for him. Jack Eichel, just the previous 6-7 years of draft picks have been studs right out of the bat. Now, Artemi Panarin, I don't know if you've seen him do his leg kick goal celebration. I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But, I mean, they're getting a youth movement in there. I'm saying probably I'd say 2 years, maybe 3 years, they're back in the playoff picture. I'm just hoping Lundqvist is still there. I don't expect him to be the starter at that point, but I want him to at least still be a part of that team. Now, oh man, what's their backup's name? I'm trying to remember right now. It just blanked on me. He's just a Russian monster. Dude is huge. He got his first start. Oh man, I'm just blanking on the name. He's going to be a good goalie, though. Watching the few games that I have of the Rangers, he's going to be a good goalie.
And it's definitely going to be hard to try and replace a guy like Lundqvist. You can only hope that, you can only somewhat make up the ground that he's had in his career. I'm trying to look up that name right now because it's killing me.
Sure.
No, please, for sure. And then while you're looking that up too, the Toronto Maple Leafs, you talk about a team that has young talent, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Anderson. It for me, I don't think it's so much the talent. I think maybe it was Babcock holding them back as to why they weren't performing. What do you think about that?
I agree, but also the way that Babcock ran that team, he wanted zero gritty players. He wanted zero hits, basically. He wanted to just skate around everybody, which, don't get me wrong, that top line of Marner's, Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, I mean, absolute studs on the offensive end. But with that being said, they need a little bit of grit. That's why they just traded with LA for, what's his name? I was just reading it again. They just made a trade with LA. Trevor Moore? Or is that who they sent? but they picked up a fourth line guy from LA to just bring in that little bit of grit, give them that little bit of confidence boost. Then also their goaltending. Frederik Andersen has been pretty solid throughout the year. He just went down with that injury, and Michael Hutchinson is an absolute sieve. For those of you who don't know what a sieve is, it's what you drain pasta through, basically, if you want to. So he just has not been good. And in that trade, they got Jack Campbell from the LA Kings, who's been a solid backup to Jonathan Quick. He's been splitting the workload with him in LA, and it's good to see him get that chance in Toronto to be a top guy until Frederik Andersen gets back.
First of all, I love just the hockey terms. When I first came to Minnesota and I announced the Minnesota State women's Division I hockey team for 3 years when I was there, going to Minnesota, I learned so many more phrases and so many more terms that I don't think I'd ever heard before. So,
yeah.
so people listening to this podcast, just go on like Google and just search NHL, I guess, weird names for things, and then it's probably a.
Oh yeah, there's plenty. I'm keeping it to a minimum. I had to break out Civ for
Obviously.
Michael Hutchinson, who's just a terrible goalie. He's never been a good goalie. I'm sorry. He's in the NHL, and he probably stopped me, but that doesn't change anything about how I feel.
Awesome. Did you have any other disappointments that you wanted to throw on this list besides those 4 ones there?
I mean, the expected one, Detroit. I'm happy for them. It's hard being an Avalanche fan to say that, but seeing a team try to hold on for so long with key veteran players who are just getting older and getting hurt and just throwing their team down a cellar. It hurts to see that in the league in general. They're finally going for a full rebuild. And I think, it's going to be a little bit of time, and I don't think Hockey Town's used to it, so the fans are really restless. But I'm excited to see where they go from here, getting higher draft picks, being able to actually put another stud team together, hopefully, because I like having great teams around the league.
And you talk about NHL history in itself, too. Detroit teams, Detroit players.
Yeah.
Obviously, the biggest one, Gordie Howe. One of the best players. You could make an argument is the best player if you really wanted to of all time. And it does suck. As an Avs fan, I'm with you. I don't want to see them have success. I'm okay with that.
I don't want to watch them win any cups, but I want them to at least be able to be competitive in the league again.
and that's kind of how I feel, too. That's kind of how I feel. To move on from that now. So get to some award predictions here, too. So we're going to talk about, let's see, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 awards. 2 of them are not ones that are voted on. They're just whoever has the most of that stat gets it. So I guess we'll start with the Art Ross, which is the most points. So I'm going with Draisaitl there right now. Obviously, he has 31 goals, 54 assists right now. Who do you have for that one?
It's hard to argue Draisaitl, but I have to go with his teammate Connor McDavid. I just got that feeling that he's going to turn it up here in the last half and just not put him to shame, but kind of be like, nah, I'm still top dog.
Yeah. And I would not be surprised if that happens too. McDavid, one of the most electric players, in the game for sure. This next one, the James Norris, which is the best defenseman in the league. I have John Carlson right now. He has 67 points and he has a plus-minus of 17. What is your opinion on that, or who do you have? Maybe somebody different for that.
I'm going with what Ovi said. John Norris. That's. How can you argue what he's done this season? There is not a single defenseman that I think compares to him this season, and it's hard to say.
Yeah, and for me especially, John Carlson, that's a guy that, when his team plays you, he demands a level of respect, and for great reason, too. The guy is a phenomenal player. He has been doing it for a little bit now, and it's a guy that I certainly love watching play anytime I get a chance to.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. especially this year, he's just turned it up to another level, and he's fully shown his true potential and what he's always had. Everybody's just finally noticing.
For sure. It is kind of hard to be on a team with Alexander Ovechkin sometimes. You don't get all the
guy who passes it to Ovechkin, so they both get all the points in the world.
Yeah. So the next one we have is the Vezina, which is the best goalie. At first, I changed it. So at first I had Tuukka Rask. I was going to go with him, but I changed it, and I'm going with Andrei Vasilevsky from Tampa Bay right now, 29-9-3, a 2.48 goals against, and a 9.18 save percentage. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay is a team outside of the Avalanche that probably is another team that I cheer for a lot. I'm a huge Lightning fan. I love what they do. It's just one of those things where I want to see them win. They get so close every single year, and they just don't get it done. Vasilevsky is a beast. I think this season they might have a chance to, but granted, we say that every season, and then they lose in the first round.
Of course. So, yeah. I mean, it seems like they haven't burned themselves out so early this year. I think that they're going deeper. So I'm hoping for them. That's, like you said, it's a team that's hard not to cheer for. You want them to succeed. Being in an unusual hockey market and having such a stellar team, you want it to work.
And especially for Steven Stamkos, too. Yeah. I mean, that's such a likable guy. Such a likable guy. So who did you have for your Vezina pick?
A little bit of an underdog. He was the comeback story of the year last year, Robin Lehner. I've been watching some Hawks games, and oh my gosh, has he been playing phenomenal. Honestly, he's got 29 games started, 15 wins, 9 losses, a 2.8 goals against average, so not the best numbers, but a .921 save percentage. So it's just one of those guys that it's hard for me to cheer against. I love what he's done, what he's brought to the game, and the light that he's brought to mental health issues in the game. It's just great, phenomenal human being, and I want to see him succeed more and more.
And you talk about what he's doing. That Chicago Blackhawks roster, that's not the best roster out there, and he is making them look very, very good.
Mm-hmm. And that's another hard thing for me to say, living here now with people coming from Illinois as well, being Blackhawks fans. I like to poke fun at them with the team that they've got, but they're being carried by Patrick Kane and Robin Lehner, in all honesty. And then, of course, they got Alex DeBrincat, who's coming up. He's looking good. They've got some youth movement as well. It's just they got to develop.
Also, I guess just another thing, just to touch on the Blackhawks, Taves is kind of a name that has kind of dropped off a little bit. How much longer do you think he has? I mean, I don't want to say like he's like, third, fourth line worthy, because he certainly isn't, but he has dropped off a little bit from what we normally are seeing from him.
Yeah, I think I don't know exactly. I honestly don't know what it is, what's made him drop off. I think he's still got years left in him. He's still a leader on that team.
Right.
It's like Duncan Keith. I don't see him going away anytime soon. They're just leaders on that team. They keep that locker room together, because in a year like this, if they didn't have guys like that, we might be seeing another Detroit, in all honesty.
Yeah. So yeah. And to speak on Leonard too, do you think the Islanders are missing him as much? Obviously, you mentioned Varlamov has been playing really well this year, but do you think in the long term they'll miss not having him?
I think the fan base does. I don't know about the team. The way that Barry Trotz coaches over there, he throws together such an amazing defensive team. He doesn't play high-risk hockey. He's a get it into the zone, get 1 forechecker on her, 2 at the blue line, 2 at the red line, to try and keep it in their zone. In their own zone, it's no nonsense. It's no try to dangle through 7 guys, including your own team, and then go up the ice and try and do something. He likes to play a sound defensive game, and he's got the pieces around there. And I don't want to say it, but he could probably put any goalie in the net, and they'd still have success.
Well, in my opinion, Corey Crawford, I was never a huge fan of him. I didn't think he was that good. But you talk about, you had a defense, that had Seabrook was there, Duncan Keith, obviously Hjalmarsson when he was there in his time too. I mean, you talk about elite level defenders. You can make me look like a phenomenal goaltender out there.
Well, I mean, we saw it with Scott Foster. What was it, last year, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
No relation. My last name's Foster. Still no relation. I wish I'd be related to an NHL goalie. But, I mean, it just kind of showed right then and there that their team is so sound defensively. They could put in that emergency call-up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move on from that one now. The Calder Trophy, which is the best rookie, essentially the Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
I have Cale Makar for mine. Currently, right now, 12 goals, 30 assists on the season. Who do you have for your pick from there? I can't imagine it would be outside of that, but maybe it is. Maybe you'll throw a curveball to me.
I got to throw a curveball because this kid's been surprising me. Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
He's just been playing phenomenal. It's going to be a tight race between those two the entire way. And as much as I want to say Cale Makar, I want to throw that little bit of variable in there so we're not on the same pick the entire time. He's got 8 goals and 36 assists for 44 points on a not fantastic Vancouver team. I mean, they're starting to get rolling again, which is great, but they're just not fully there yet. Pedersen, Besser, Horvat, who has come back out of nowhere, and Jacob Markstrom, who's been playing phenomenal between the pipes. So it's another team. I'm kind of looking forward to making that playoff push.
I say Cale Makar, and I guess that's maybe just have a little bias in my side.
Oh, yeah.
I think Quinn Hughes, whichever one wins it, I think the other one is a close second.
Oh,
you're not going to go wrong with either pick.
No, I think because it's usually based off points and just overall factors, how the team's doing and all that. I think if it comes down to strictly points because of how they both impact the teams, I think it's going to come down to at least no more than 10 points between the two players. So,
yeah, right. So the next one we can move on now is to the Rocket Ricard Trophy, which is the most goals in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Alex Ovechkin. I don't know.
That's another one you can't debate. Alex Ovechkin is most likely going to walk away with that. And like I said, 4 or 5 years, I think he's passing Gretzky's record.
This is another thing. Can we just rename that trophy to the Alex Ovechkin one? The Ricard one to the Ovechkin. It seems like every year he's either winning that award or he's in the top 3 of winning that award.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Maurice Richard was one of the first ever elite goal scorers back in the day for the Montreal Canadiens. But if the league ever gets in any trouble with the award shows, I think they might think about renaming it.
Ovechkin, no doubt he's going to win that one.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hart, which is essentially the MVP, the most valuable player out there. You could go with a few different guys. Personally, again, probably a little biased, but I'm going to go with Nathan McKinnon. I think last season, I don't know. I think he kind of got robbed a little bit. But this season, I think he's going to win it. What do you think?
Last season, what he did with all the injuries that the Avalanche were dealing with, and he was single-handedly winning games.
Yeah,
he got robbed last year. But this year, I see somebody doing that on a different team right now. He's the only player on that team doing anything. It's Jack Eichel for the Buffalo Sabres.
Okay.
It's hard to not choose him. He's putting up good points for a team that has absolutely nothing right now. Yeah. Their fan base is the most upset fan base in the world. I don't know. You got to check out some of the radio interviews that their fans have been doing. They are not happy with anything there.
Oh, man. And they have, I have a young infusion, obviously, with Rasmus Dahlin there, too. I mean, a solid player. So I think, you give it a couple of years, but granted, Buffalo fans have been giving it a couple of years for about 10 years now, and nothing has changed.
Yeah, I think the last time they were in the playoffs was like 07, 08 or something like that. It's been a while. They've been, like you said, giving it a few years for quite a while now.
How much, in your opinion, does the Hart play into team success?
It's hard to say. It feels like the heart usually goes to a guy on a not so great team who's still putting up numbers and doing what he's got to do to get games won. Uh, Now, I mean, I think it's more towards that, but still, with that being said, I've seen it I could see Steven Stamkos winning it still because he's a phenomenal player on a phenomenal team. It's just, I don't know exactly what factors they take into account for it, but I would think that personally, if it were up to me, it's a great guy on a lesser team still putting up points and trying to win games. So.
And I would agree with you there. I would agree with you for sure. I think a lot of times, don't get me wrong, I think team success could play a huge part into that. If you're one of the best players in the league and your team is one of the top 3 teams in the league, by all means, too. But I'm all for giving it to a guy like a Jack Eichel, giving it to a guy like a Taylor Hall did. Again, I think McKinnon should have won, but
I totally agree as well. But Taylor Hall was basically in the same situation in New Jersey last year. It's hard. It was it's like the Calder is going to be. It's going to be real close between 2 players.
So we'll have to see how that award comes down to, because I'm actually pretty excited. I think there's a few different guys you could potentially give it to. Who knows if McDavid turns it on too? His name's always in that conversation as well too.
It's hard not to be with how Edmonton shifted. Now with Edmonton, there's a little kid on that team who's just become a man, like just a legend now. Kyler Yamamoto. This dude, I never had any personal connection with him, but my roommate when I was playing in Steamboat grew up playing with him in the LA Junior Kings program.
Really?
It's just crazy to see how much these California youth hockey programs are starting to influence pro hockey. It's just a little side piece for me that it's nice to see growing up playing against some great players who just never had any looks because of location. And
that's super. And you bring up a great point too. People are so used to looking at, the Canadian teams, the Minnesota Wilds, the colder environments, I guess you can say, to have players come from there. So I agree with you 100%. And that's why so much I want to see Tampa Bay win. I wish Florida. Florida, I think, is kind of a ways away from getting there. But to see a team like a Tampa Bay win or like the LA Kings, when the run that they were going on, back then too, not incredibly long ago too, I think that's phenomenal for the game.
Oh, it is. I mean, coming from California, I can't stand a single Californian NHL team as a hockey fan, just how it goes. But I love what they've done for the game, just growing up there and seeing how much it has expanded. Every single team, San Jose, Anaheim, and LA, they all have their own high school hockey leagues for kids to start playing hockey. It's just wonderful to see.
That's super cool. So then the final award, the Jack Adams, which is the best coach. Right now, it's hard. The Bruins are probably the best team in the NHL. I'm not a big Bruins guy, but you got to give credit where credit is deserved. And Bruce Cassidy has done an amazing job with the Bruins over there.
Absolutely. It's hard to I got to look up the guy's name because my pick is someone else, but it's hard to disagree with that. And, the Bruins have just been a force for years. It's insane how good they've been able to be. And it's another thing of what players do. It's what Colorado's starting to do. It's what the Bruins have been doing forever. Players taking lower value deals to get that team together.
Yeah.
Because Patrice Bergeron, I hate Brad Marchand, but he's a great player nonetheless. Just the fact that they're all taking hits on their monetary gain for team success is fantastic. And then my pick is not the same one. It's going to be Sheldon Keefe from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay.
Getting rid of Babcock, having him come in and start turning that team in the right direction. I don't know. I think if they're able to make it to the playoffs from where they started, I think he's a high candidate. They had such a bad slump in the beginning of the year under Babcock. I think if he gets them to the playoffs, he's going to be up there in the talks.
Absolutely. And then, obviously we talked about the Leafs being a disappointment too. And then, like I said, I think that was more having to do with Babcock versus the actual team. So I think a lot of times it just goes to show that a coach can really have a huge impact on the game. And Sheldon Keefe, like you mentioned, turning things around for Toronto.
Oh, yeah. Actually, another high pick. I mean, I'm still picking Keefe 100%. That's my pick for this year. But again, Barry Trotz, he won it last year. Just the success that he has had in the Islanders franchise with not much after losing John Tavares a couple of years ago. They don't have a whole lot of those key pieces. Yeah, some of these players are great, but it's not a full form team to be able to make that team produce and do well.
Right. Hey, Barry Trotz, you talk about players and just kind of synonymous with awards. For a while, Carey Price and the Vezina. You talk about Ovechkin and the Richard Trophy. McDavid and the Hart. Barry Trotz and the Jack Adams. His name is always. I mean, even if he's not winning it, his name is always in conversation for potentially winning it.
Absolutely, he's a phenomenal coach. The players love him, and it's hard not to cheer for a guy like that.
So that's all the stuff that I had to talk about. Is there any NHL storylines or any NHL stuff that you wanted to talk about? We mentioned before, obviously, with the whole Jay Bouwmeester thing.
Yeah.
Thank God he is doing better, because that is an absolutely scary situation.
Yeah, that's what I would touch on just real quick. Jay Bouwmeester, he collapsed on the bench about 7 minutes into the first period against the Ducks. Just cardiac arrest. The trainers and doctors got straight to him, stabilized him. It's a great thing to hear that he's doing well. The Blues are giving updates as we go. It's just scary situation. We had it with Rich Peverly in Dallas a few years ago. Man, it happened to two Thrashers players on different occasions. One of them was, I believe, it was their goalie. I can't remember who, because it was like 15 years ago, but there were two separate Thrashers players. It's just something you don't like to see. It doesn't matter how much you hate a team. It doesn't matter how much you love a team. You don't like to see guys go down, especially with something like that.
Yeah. And not to mention, too, Bouwmeester is a guy that has had a lot of impact on the game, too.
Yeah.
So the fact that now he's kind of stabilized and conscious, that's ginormous. So phenomenal job to the medical staff there. That's
Absolutely,
huge.
Yeah. And then last thing that I'd touch on before going is the Connor McDavid storyline that they're all coming out about, his knee injury, potential career ender, rehabs, and then he comes back and keeps on doing what he's doing. It's a feel-good story, because you don't want to lose he's a generational talent. Absolutely. He just is, absolutely. And losing him in the game would just be horrible right now. Especially right now.
Absolutely. So that's all the stuff I have to talk about. So I guess we'll do some kind of fun question. I don't say rapid fire, because I don't think you have to think about it too much. But we'll give you some things here. So who is your all-time favorite NHL player?
Peter Forsberg. I wore number 21 my entire life. I idolized him. I played forward when I was real young, and power forward. I love to hit. I may not be the best goal scorer. I may not get the most points, but I'm there to put in work in the corners and make something happen.
Well, I guess on this next question, probably I would assume is going to be the same as that. I was going to say your all-time favorite Avalanche player, so I'm assuming it's also going to be Peter Forsberg.
It would still have to be Peter Forsberg. Yeah, I mean, it's I know Blake didn't play there a long time, but he's another guy that I kind of morphed my game around. So top two would be Peter Forsberg, Rob Blake, and then, of course, Joe Sakic. How could you ever deny him?
What about maybe like current Av, or maybe not even Av? We'll do current Av to start. So what about current Av? Who's your favorite?
Current Av, I love Matt Calvert. He's just a warrior. He's an absolute warrior. He does not, I'm going to keep PG, of course, he does not care about what anybody does to him. It doesn't matter how many shots he blocks. It does not matter how many times he's gotten hit. He gets up and he gets back into that play. I just love it.
And then, who is your current favorite player in the NHL that is not on the Avs?
Oh, I see. That's a tough one. Man,
There's a lot. There's
so many great players. I'm gonna get hate for this as an Avalanche fan, but Matthew Tkachuk, I love his game. Little rat. It's just like Brad Marchand. Him being on another team, you hate him. If he was on your team, he'd be your favorite player in the world.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I know I'm gonna get hate for that, especially from Benino. I'll take it. I don't care. It's worth it.
The Tkachuks. I would not pick that, but I respect you for picking that. That's a solid pick. I respect you for
pick the skill guys. Everybody picks the skill guys. I got to give credit to the guys who aren't there.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, what is your all-time favorite hockey memory? It could be maybe from when you played. It could be from watching an NHL game. Whatever.
Oh man, it's my favorite one is it was my last year junior, so I'm 20 at the time, just because late birthday. Last year of eligibility before pretty much hanging them up and going to beer league. We're in the championship game. I tore my meniscus a month left into the season, so I barely played the last month. But there for playoffs, I didn't play too much, but I was on the bench with the guys. We ended up winning, I want to say 9-3, 8-3. Just steamrolled the team that we had tough games with all year, so it was feel good there. Last 30 seconds of the game, coach just lets me go out there and take my last ride, basically, before clock goes out. We celebrate everything, and it was the first games that my parents got to come out and see me play in Colorado, too, was the championship tournament. So awesome. Just being able to celebrate that moment and how much they gave up for me to pursue my dream of playing hockey as long as I could, it was just heart-touching, heart-feel, everything. And I'm getting a little bit teary-eyed just talking about it because it was such an emotional moment for me. So,
well, that hit me kind of in the feels too, and I never played hockey in my life. Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing story, man. That is super cool. That is super cool. Do you have a favorite NHL memory? Again, so many.
Avs Cup wins. I don't know. I may have only been alive for one, but still. I mean, actually, it would be the second Avalanche Cup win when Joe Sakic takes the trophy, gives it straight to Ray Bourque, guy who did so much for the Boston Bruins organization. That's another tearjerker. I mean, the Avalanche retired his number. He only played there for one, maybe 2 seasons. I think it was only one. Just because the impact that he had on the Bruins, and even in that year, the impact that he had on the Avs. So,
I like that. That's cool. That's super cool. Well, who knew that we were going to be getting into some emotional tearjerkers here at the end of this podcast? But it's cool
that
to share.
That was a surprise to me too.
That's awesome. So that's all the stuff that I have to talk about. Is there anywhere if people want to talk hockey with you, talk crap to you, where can they find you at?
I mean, you're more than welcome to come at me at on Instagram. I think I'm still private. I'll change that after this goes up so you guys can come in and try to talk smack. It's going to be rfoster_24 on Instagram. And then on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, because I barely use it, but after this comes out, I will. My handle, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be Ryan_Foster_21.
Okay.
And I just checked it, so that's it right there.
They're not going to be following some random other Ryan Foster out there, then. Awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you for coming on the show. I hope you had a good time.
Absolutely. It was tons of fun for me, and hopefully when playoffs come around, we'll be able to do another.
Absolutely, 100%. Probably talk about some of these awards. They'll be more set in stone, too, for sure.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a little bit easier to see where our predictions went to where they ended up.
Well, then we'll have to make playoff predictions, which is even harder.
I don't want to do that. I'm going to make myself look like a fool because I did last year.
What did you have last year?
I want to say I had the Flames going to the third round. They beat the Avs in the first. And they were playing – it was Blues versus Vegas as well, and then it was Blues versus Flames. So at least that part was right. But I had the Flames or the Blues losing to Pittsburgh.
Okay. Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, that's like I said, all the stuff we have to talk about. As for myself, if you want to follow me on Twitter, Lucas_Dorton, capital L, capital D. Follow Nick Doetkott on Twitter as well too at Doetkott. Definitely give us a share. Let us know what you like. Let us know what you didn't like. If you want to talk some smack, the DMs are going to be open for Ryan, so he will be ready.
That's fine. Bring it on. I'm fine with it. I can take the heat. Done it for enough years.
Awesome. But yeah, so as for myself and Ryan Foster, we are out.